Welcome back. So we've been talking about those mixed reactions from the political parties, including the IEC, on the Court's ruling. And you've heard also that they both have different interpretations of what has happened. The Democratic Alliance begrudgingly welcoming the Court's ruling, saying only because of a lack of evidence and legal stricture with regards to evidence did the Court find that way. The IEC itself saying they'll continue to make decisions on the basis of law. Let's get a legal analyst now to break it down for us, to tell us what exactly happened and which way did the Court really rule. Advocate Romeo Nthambeleni is a legal analyst. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So both parties seeming to claim victory. Let's just get your assertions on what exactly did the Court rule, even though it did find in favor of the IEC. It would seem because of the Plaskett-Evan rule, and if you could just explain that to us.
Yeah, thank you, Tsepiso, and good evening to the viewers as well. It's quite correct to say that the Court in this matter ruled, and it ruled in favor of the voters to actually exercise their choice in selecting the candidate of their own choices. There is no victory whatsoever for any political parties, including the ANC or the DA. What the Court was closed with was the interpretation of the law, and they correctly interpreted Section 11.2 of the Municipal Elections Electoral Act.
Okay. Now, I want to get into, so let's then start with that, the Section 11, Subsection 2 of the Municipal Electoral Act to amend the election timetable. So the DA accuses the Court of not dealing with the merits, and that is the motive behind why the IEC did it, and their view is that it was in order to benefit the ANC, whereas the IEC argues that it was in order to benefit the electorate, as you've just mentioned, saying that they can't say they're opening up the voter registration and also denying maybe new people who are going on to the voters' roll the ability to be a candidate should they want to. So explain that rule to us exactly, and why there was a unanimous judgment on it.
Yeah, correct. Tsepiso. The Court rightly found that the moment you must remember that the background of this matter is that the IEC was clearly not ready that the elections are going to proceed, and they prepared an application that went to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court dismissed that application and said elections must be held. And when they done so, the Constitutional Court also set aside the proclamation date which was set out by the minister in relation to the election date. So being that has given that decision that the Constitutional Court has made, the Constitutional Court said the moment we start saying that we are saying that there is an interference on the basis of the political parties in favor of another, we are interfering with the rights of the citizenry to actually exercise their right to vote. And when we do so also, we will be offending and making an intrusion into the Commission's framework as set out in Parliament and the rule of law. So the Court correctly found out that by actually postponing the date, there was a little bit of chaos that was actually created, and it must allow the opportunity to give new registration. And even though they have not set it out clearly on the order, what was to follow was that if there are new candidates that are open to registrations and they want to participate either as independent candidate or representing their political organizations, the reopening cannot apply retrospective. It must apply prospectively in order to allow the functioning of the process and following the right interpretation of the law and the Constitution, which allows eligible members to be participants in elections, both as on a voter's roll as a candidate and also electing their a candidate of choice.
Mm. So the Apex Court ruling that it couldn't have found in any other way other than in favor of the respondents, which would be the IEC, because of conformity of the Plaskett-Evans rule. So just please explain to us what exactly does it mean. So was there an expectation that the ANC would admit to that disputed fact that indeed the decision it took was to benefit the IEC took that decision in order to benefit the ANC?
No, definitely you are correct. They were not going to make that admission. And the challenge with this matter is that the application was brought on papers, and there was no evidence that was advanced before the court in order for the court to make a finding whether the timetable opening will actually be for the exclusive benefit of the ANC because it did not comply with the time frames. What was before the court was the issue relating to the opening of the timetables in line with the new reproclamation of the order that was made by the minister, which was announced today. So to cast aspersions on the IEC without having evidence, the court will not be able to do that. That's why the court said, in that kind of instance, you need evidence that will be able to prove, and without substantiating of evidence, you will not be able to get to the bottom of the issue. And so it shows the nature of the democracy that we have in South Africa, because in most advanced democracies in the world, it's actually the opposite. The opposition parties will actually support one another so that there will be equal participations on the elections. But for us, it's actually the opposite, because if obviously there are no candidates that are fielded by the ANC, it affects the right to vote to those ones that wanted to vote for it as an organizational party. So that also would be infringing on the rights of the voters to actually exercise their right to choice. That's why the IEC said when the equities are equal, then at the end of the day, justice will prevail.
Thank you so much for speaking to us and unpacking that rather complex matter for us. Advocate Romeo Nthambeleni, legal analyst. Of course, you can speak to us on our Twitter and Facebook pages if you want to comment on some of this. We continue with the